Today's guest has mastered the counterintuitive art of making life easier by choosing the harder path. He's built a framework that's transforming how high performers think about discomfort. At 16, Brett Eaton had a devastating back injury and the news of his father's sudden passing that forced him to confront life's brutal truth. You're going to be uncomfortable either way, so you might as well choose discomfort that leads to growth instead of regret. He's proven that exhilarating uneasiness of pushing limits is the secret ingredient that separates those who thrive from those who merely survive. In this episode, we'll break down Brett Eaton's method for building unshakable confidence, explore his Sunday setup system for dominating your week, and discover why never miss a Monday could be the game-changing principle that finally gets you unstuck from the patterns keeping your potential locked away. Join us for this new episode on the Founder to Founder podcast. Meet Kintsugi, the AI-powered tax compliance platform trusted by over 3,000 companies worldwide. Powered by Vertex, Kintsugi simplifies the sales tax process over 11,000 US jurisdictions, Canada and the EU, cutting compliance work from that long 40 hours a month to just 10 minutes. E-commerce companies that do the switch save over 50 to 70%. No long-term contracts, and of course, that unmatched level of support. With seamless integrations to Shopify, Amazon, QuickBooks, and more, the onboarding to Kintsugi takes less than 30 minutes. So, Kintsugi, smarter, faster, more affordable tax compliance. Put the pieces together with Kintsugi. All right, guys, today's no joke. Today is no joke. We've got Brett Eaton here, who has just published Uncomfortable Either Way. But known Brett for some time. He's a fascinating individual. Today's gonna be an incredible conversation. Brett, welcome to the podcast.
Dude, thank you. It's an honor, man. You've had some incredible guests on this show.
A few.
The standard is high, and I'm ready to bring it, man. Good to be here.
Well, listen, before we get into the book, I want to get a little bit into the backstory of Brett. You know, how does Brett get to the point where he makes just an incredible book that I just said right before the podcast? I was like, this literally can apply to anyone. But tell me a little bit about the background. How did you get into entrepreneurship? How did you get into living this uncomfortable lifestyle?
Yeah, I didn't grow up with a lot of entrepreneurs in my life, and I didn't have a lot to look at when I was younger, but I played sports similar to you. And there are just so many lessons that I think you learn in sports about, it's really uncomfortable to be sucking wind in the fourth quarter. It's also uncomfortable to run sprints in the summer. And it's uncomfortable to when the coach pushes you really hard. It's also uncomfortable when the coach ignores you and doesn't know your name. So you start to kind of pick up on that. And I always remember the coaches that I liked the most, or the ones that I played the best for, were not just like all drill sergeant, but they pushed me to be better. Regardless of how good I was, they pushed me to be better. And I wasn't the most talented. I'm never crossed 6 foot. I'm not, overly big, but I was a hustler. And that kind of hustle mentality was what really drove me through life. And I've always connected the dots back to fitness and wellness. And when my playing career was over in high school, I didn't go on to play very, very many places.
Like many of us.
Yeah, let me clarify. You're not talking to a pro athlete or anything. But I really gravitated towards training. And then training kind of became my love because there was no more sport attached to it. But through a couple of big injuries that I had when I was younger, I was in a lot of physical therapy. So there was always training. The goal was always get back on the field. The goal was to, be strong. And that's where I really fell in love with. I loved that out of all the parts of life, training and fitness and health always seemed fair, because no matter what I was willing to put in, the sacrifices I was willing to make, the work that I was willing to put in, nobody couldn't walk out of the gym and somebody be like, great workout, but I'm only going to give you 60% of that. Great workout, I'm only going to give you 50%. What you put in, you got out. So to me, it was the first place in life, all of a sudden things felt fair. And I really gravitated towards that.
Wow. There's so many lessons to be learned through sport and through fitness, because it is one of those things where sometimes it's fair, sometimes it's not fair, but it always comes back to you. And one thing you mentioned in the book was the idea of urgency versus patience. Kind of like, some people say macro patience, micro speed. There's been a lot of like variations of how to approach, I guess, your goals in that way. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like when you look at, people and you organize their life and you're a high performance coach as well, like where do you see that people fall short on when it comes to actually deciphering how to manage the two?
Yeah, patience is a virtue, right? Patience is a virtue, but I think it can be misused. And at times it can really just become a fancy excuse of, oh, I'm going to be really patient. I'm going to be really patient. Where I have always believed in urgency because it can not only speed up your timeline, it oftentimes speeds up your effort and it will multiply your consistency. So I like urgency, especially in the short term. If you were to like, hey, we're going to go do this thing in 5 years, I'd be like, awesome. Remind me in 4, remind me when like I need to start training, or we're going to go climb a mountain. We're going to go do a thing. I have always struggled, and maybe this is a personal thing, which it probably is, but I've always struggled at timelines that were more than 90 days out. So I've always kind of created my life in these 90-day segments because 90 days for me felt more like a sprint than it did necessarily this long game. Now, I'm not telling people not to have long-term goals, and I'm not telling you that, what you want to do in 2 years or 5 years is not important. But I have always found that even something like, hey, we're going to do that in 2026, like that's a couple months away right now. I'm like, that still feels very far away. I would rather do 90 days because in 90 days, what I've found, especially with working with clients, is in 90 days, we're probably going to have a holiday. You're probably going to have some sort of travel. You may get sick. You may have like good days and bad days. Like it's a good realistic timeline for real life. So when I would work with somebody, I started to be like, I don't want to work with anybody for less than 90 days. Like that is the bare minimum. I will come in and I will work with either you, your company. Like I want 90 days because you can see some of those real life changes there. Right. And also everybody knows that there's urgency on the table.
I love that. It's almost like the idea is like, sure, you can have this. It's kind of outlining what a SMART goal is, right?
Yes.
Because you're giving yourselves, you're saying, okay, I don't want to get this done in a year from now or 5 years from now, but it's like, what do I need to do today, this month, this quarter, in order to take those steps to get there? And it's so funny you say that because literally just before this podcast, we were setting up a meetup in New York for our members there. And one of these really beautiful restaurant and hotel. And I happened to meet the founder and I was like, hey, we're going to come September 26th. There's going to be 40 of us. And his response was hilarious. And it literally in my head, I was like, wow, is he shooting me off? But it's exactly what you just said. He was like, no problem. Text me the day before. Yeah. And I was like, it's in 2 weeks. Like what?
Yeah.
And he's like, no. Just text me the day before. And in my head, I was like, because he's executing today on his plan. And he's like, I will execute that for you when I need to execute that. And right now, it's not a priority. Yeah,
there's a gamify to it. And I think the longer you play any game, the better you get at the game. Mm-hmm. So in fitness, when my first career, for anybody listening, was in fitness. I spent 8 years kind of opening gyms and regional fitness manager and like all things under the sun. But what I started to find was, okay, what is the client's goal? And then I'd have to learn a lot about that client because the same goal for 2 different people, totally different approach. Mm-hmm. For one of them, they're like, I want to start now and I want to get this as quick as possible. For somebody else, they're like, by the end of the year, I want to, and you just started to figure out what is their motivation, what's their inspiration, and what buttons do you push with that person? And that's where I really started to be like, I need to gamify something that is urgent for them. Because if I say, hey, for the next month, and for a lot of people, it's like, yeah, weight loss, I want to lose X amount of pounds by the year. But like you lose 1 pound this week, you feel discouraged because you got 25 to go. That felt super deflating. But if our goal for this month is to get 20 workouts in 30 days, that all of a sudden today matters. Because you missed today, guess what? You only have so many days you can miss before you don't hit that goal. So what I started to do is try to figure out the psychology, and that's where I really fell in love with coaching, but the psychology of a person and what makes them tick, what frustrates them, and where's their quitting point. And if you can figure out like, hey, when do they get frustrated enough to quit? Then all of a sudden we can put a lot of accountability in place or some things in place to prevent that from happening. And therefore, we're keeping some urgency year round as opposed to this start, stop, all in, all out.
I actually want to talk a little bit about coaching because it's a very interesting thing that I find some people either weave in and out of. Like, I need a coach, I don't need a coach. Some people are just like, I can't do anything without a coach. And then some people are like, what do I need a coach for? I'm good, or I have GPT or whatever. Like ChatGPT is my coach. But I can't help but recognize two things. One is I've always had a coach for different things in my life. I got a paddle coach, I got a mindset coach, I got a spiritual. You have to have a coach. At least that's my belief.
Yeah.
But what would you say to someone who's considering a coach? Because one thing I have noticed, and I don't have the recipe for it, is you need the right coach.
There has to be the right coach.
How does someone go about finding that coach and then recognizing first that, okay, you know what, maybe I need a coach for this?
It's finding the right coach because it's a relationship. And, you know, the clients that I've had for the longest, and honestly, I took a huge step back from coaching strictly because the book was taking up more time and we were moving and, you know, some other things that I was working on with speaking. The right coach can be so valuable because they can see things that you can't. And there's, you know, chapter 2 in the book is you haven't tried everything. You've just tried everything that you can think of. Right. And I really believe that it's people hit that spot where like, man, like, I have tried everything. And I get it, right? It makes us feel good of like, man, I put all the effort in. But where that line can become a hindrance to you is when you're like, I've tried everything, so it doesn't work. Hold on a second. Now I could come to you, you've built and sold a company, you know, you've done extra things that I haven't done. And I could come to you and be like, hey, this is where I'm stuck. I think I've tried everything. And I've heard you do it. I've heard my wife on calls with people and like, you know, they're like, you know, she'll say something and they'll be like, I can't believe we never thought of that. Why didn't we think of that? Like, it seems so obvious, but what you're getting is a different point of view. And potentially you're getting somebody who has either worked with other people who have done that, tried different things, they have more tricks up their sleeve, or at the same time, they have just done it longer and maybe more consistent than you, and they can give you some feedback on there. So finding the right coach is important. You got to get kind of clear on what you want. And when I first came out of fitness, I was just coaching fitness, and I had joined a coaching program that I remember it was not the right fit. So let me give you this example, because it was the biggest investment I had made in coaching. And it was kind of one of those, like, I'm going to prove it to myself by making this large investment. Probably didn't do my back homework, you know, just trusted somebody that I shouldn't have trusted.
Yeah. No due diligence.
No due diligence. And I learned the hard way. And I also learned like what kind of coach that I want to be. So it was valuable. It was a costly lesson, but it was valuable. Like now that I look back on it. And I remember it was when I had said like, hey, I really want to start coaching people. And I'm starting to see success coaching people outside of fitness. I want to look at the 360 view. I really like talking about habits. I like talking about routines, but I also like talking about time management and stress. And I'm finding that the fitness is becoming so much easier for these people if I focus on the full 360. And in this program, they were so fixated on me being like the fitness guy, and they were helping me come up with this program, and I was going to revolutionize the program. And they were like, unbeatable body. Right. You're the unbeatable body. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that's it. Like, I'm pretty sure it's like more than that.
Think about it. Go home.
Like unbeatable body. And like, eventually I got to the point, I was like, this isn't it. I know it's working, and like, it needs to be more than that. And they were like, okay, we got it. The unbreadable body. And I'm like, no, you guys are like, literally, I'm losing my mind. So that was one of those things. Yeah. 10 weeks, 12 weeks later, I felt like I was no further along, other than I had the conviction that I don't want to just do fitness anymore. So again, valuable enough for me.
Clarity.
It gave me the clarity, and it showed me some of the things that like, hey, I don't want to do. Now, some of the best coaches I've ever had, they met me where I am. And I think it's so important between a good coach and a great coach. And this could be for sport. This could probably be for business. This could be for mindset. It is not trying to point out weaknesses, but the first thing I try to do with somebody is, how do I leverage your strengths? What do you do well that I want to shine the light even brighter on and get you to double down on your strengths? Of course, there are going to be things that we could do better. Of course, there are going to be things that we could maybe be more efficient at, but that will come along if we focus on the strengths. Because the worst thing that we could do is have you spend all your time on your weaknesses, forget your strengths, and then guess what? Everything starts to drop, because the things that got you to where you are were those strengths. Let's not ignore those. So finding out where that is, and I think this could be valuable for everybody listening, is a life inventory assessment. And it's not necessarily yes, I have a document called Life Inventory Assessment, but for everybody, it's just taking a step back. And whether it's in January, whether it's right now, whether it's you get off this podcast and you listen, but take some inventory on the big and most important buckets of your life. The same way if we were running a 7-Eleven and we need to know how many, sodas were sold. Right. So we know how many to order or how many chips or whatever we need to do. You need to take life inventory on what's going well, what's not going well. Where am I spending my time that is valuable? Where am I spending my time that's not? where are the people that are filling my cup and making me feel great? And then where are the people that I'm spending too much time draining my energy, talking negative, and zapping all of the good stuff out of my life? That's what I mean by life inventory, of finding out what is the most important things for you, getting clear on that. But before we do all of that, we got to find out where we are today.
Wow. It's like such an important piece of self-reflection, which is actually so much easier said than done.
So much easier said than done.
It's quite hard to just like sit there and be like, all right, am I in the right headspace for this right now? Because I'm not feeling my best. And I find that I do that sometimes too. Like I looked at my journal the other day and I was like, I have some prompts. I kind of do a version of the inventory actually, now that I think about it. But then I was like, I only do my journal when I'm not feeling my best. Like if I read my journal, it's like super down. And I'm just like, because when I'm feeling good, I'm like, I don't need to journal.
Don't need to do it. Yes.
And so it's also an important point to understand where you're at.
Yes.
Because sometimes you reach out to a coach or you embark on a new thing from a down, darker place.
Yeah.
And it's not always the best place.
Yes. It's no different than when somebody loses, right? Think about a game. When you lose, you're like, what did we do that we lost? Like, what do we got to do better? And all of a sudden you can come up with all these things. But when you win, you celebrate, you pop the champagne, you're like, we're good. We must have been awesome. No, there's so many things to learn when you're winning. And, one of my favorite Steve Jobs quotes is, we can't connect the dots looking forward. We can only connect the dots looking backwards. And my favorite part of being a coach, and every coach out there should be really good at being able to connect dots looking backwards. And one of my favorite things to do is find somebody, and this is not just with a client or speaking or a company, it is like sometimes with friends, of pointing out, hey man, I know you're feeling this way right now, but can I just point out like what you've done in the last 3 months? Can I just point out what you've done in the last 6 months? So, and also, hey, you're killing it right now. You're crushing it. All cylinders are firing. Can we also connect the dots on why? Let's not just enjoy like, oh, we're so good at all this, but like specific reasons why you're on fire right now. Because guess what? If we can connect those dots, we can repeat that.
Wow, that is so powerful to do. It's such an important component to self-actualizing in life. People view that like Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a one person kind of endeavor. Like, I want to fulfill Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I want to reach self-actualization. And the best example I ever got was, I remember saying that to not my current coach, but my previous coach. We must have been 19 years old. And anyways, so I send my coach, I say, I want to self-actualize by 25. And his response was amazing at the time. I thought he was shooing me off and I appreciate it. But fast forward to 30 years old now, he said, that's so amazing, Aaron. Who are you bringing with you? What's up, founder to founder fam? I just want to quickly pause here and thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of this journey. Starting a podcast is no joke. And the fact that hundreds of you listen every single week means the world to us. We want to continue to bring better and different and unique conversations to you to give you the most amount of value. Our only ask is that if you enjoy the pod, to please just share it with a friend. And most importantly, leave a comment, DM us, give us any sort of feedback. This entire production is for you. So if we can make it just 1% better, we will. We love you all. All right, let's get back into the pod. One thing in your book that I love, and actually one thing I really enjoyed reading, was every time you brought up something and I was like, do I do that? And if it was like, yes, I was like, yes. Like, and if it was no, I was like, all right, I got to add that. But you mentioned the Sunday setup, which is like, oh, it's my favorite thing. And I want you to walk people through it, because I feel like I do like a Sunday setup almost every single night. But if I miss this Sunday, wow, I organize my travel so I don't miss it.
Yes, same. And it's going to be one of these things that probably a lot of your audience is going to listen and be like, I kind of do that. And I want to tell them that there's a huge difference between kind of doing it and doing it. Because for me, I kind of did it for a while. Did it when it was convenient, didn't do it when it was. And one of my longest clients that I probably will work with until we both pass the, like,
somebody dies.
He is the man. He is just so good. And when we stop working together, we'll just be best friends. He has said that this Sunday setup has been the single most important thing for his success week over week. And when he said that to me, I was like, we're doing something right. right? So the Sunday setup is basically, I call it like a 30-minute block on Sunday that just allows you to create some space and set up the upcoming week. And there's a couple of like my favorite parts. You want me to go through the whole thing? I'll go through the whole thing. Yeah. So the first part is just find an environment that allows you to be in a good space. Like doing it while you're driving and talking into your phone. Like that's, just multitask. To me, the energy that we put towards something is big. I know you're a big energy guy. Put good energy into this and you'll have a much better setup. The second part is a mantra. So figuring out what your mantra is and what it is for that week. And basically, because every time I open that page throughout the week, it's at the top and I get to read it and it's a reminder. For me, it has been how many days until the book, how many days until the baby, because we're expecting a baby. So like to me, right at the top, I know exactly the countdown. I work well within like 90-day increments. The baby is a little bit outside of that, but I like counting backwards because again, urgency. If I see 119 and then all of a sudden the next week, all of a sudden that's down to 112, it's like, where those did I use those 7 days? Wow. Because the clock is ticking. Then we go to review. Review is a fancy way, and the athlete in me, loves this, but it's like watching the game tape. I look back over the last week, flip through some pages, kind of look through my calendar, and I just ask myself, if I could live that week over again, what would be the one thing that I would do differently? That is so much bigger than I'm making it sound, because the biggest thing that gets in people's way from making progress and having momentum is not making mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. It's making the same mistake you made last week. If you make the same mistake because you stayed up late on Wednesday watching Netflix, and then on Thursday you missed your workout and Thursday sucked because of XYZ, and then you do the same thing next Wednesday, that's a choice now, right? That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice, or that wasn't a excuse. That's something that we're now choosing to do. So that mantra is really allowed me like 52 chances of not making the same mistake twice. I can't say I'm perfect, but it really highlights. Now, rather than looking at everything I did wrong, I try to just focus on one. Focus on the one thing, put a plan in place to make sure that you do better this week. Then we get to landmines. Landmines are things that can blow up in your face. It could be travel. It could be a podcast in the middle of the day. It could be, it doesn't have to be bad things. It could be really good things, but things that will change your schedule around. If I know I'm getting on a plane on Thursday is usually Brett's rest day from the gym. Right. Maybe I actually want to work out that morning because of the plane. Let me sub some things around, work out on a day where maybe I would have off, workout, change that around. You can also change dinner plans, things with my wife, making sure her calendar, I look at the landmines and I always look 2 weeks ahead. So next week, I'm already looking at some of the landmines that might be in the way that I could either move, plan for. So that way, when next week rolls around, I've already had 2 glimpses at what those landmines could be. Here's the thing about landmines. Most of them were put there by us, and most of them won't cause you any trouble if you're aware of where they are. Okay. So this is where another one of those things that came into play of why are people why is somebody telling me they can't do XYZ because they have a flight on Thursday? Did they not book that flight? How is that blowing up their calendar? And it was one of these things of you put it there, you just weren't aware that it was coming until, that week. So get ahead of it. Then I kind of split it into a couple columns, and this is where it's kind of evolved over time, and based upon the season, it'll change. But basically I have kind of needle moving tasks. I call them NMTs. And then I'll have IPAs. Not the beers, but IPAs as income producing activities. For all the business owners out there, what are the things that I need to do to make sure that we are producing income? And the NMTs are needle moving tasks. That could be, for the last 2 months, we've had needle moving tasks for the book launch. The book launch isn't, is September, but it's wait, we got XYZ to do. So it just allows me to take a bigger project and break it back down. And then the last couple things on there is I have, a little list for business that are kind of hey, reach out to so-and-so, make sure you connect with this, follow up with this. And then I have personal. And that personal could be either a honey-do list. It could be hey, things I want to do for myself. It could be things I want to do with my wife. It could be anniversary that I'm planning that's coming up. Right. It could be those type of things. But that Sunday setup now takes me about 30 minutes. And that 30 minutes probably saves me at least 3 hours throughout my week. Sometimes couple hours a day of just being ahead of what it needs to do. Now, somebody's going to push back and be Brett, but on Wednesday, a lot of times my week changes and I have to add things. Great. You already have some things in there, and you may find, hey, this is no longer important. That can be bumped to next week. But this vital, not only important, but urgent, needs to be done this week. So that 30 minutes is, if you dedicate the time to it, it will start to pay itself back to you. And if somebody may be I want to add this, great, add it. It's not it doesn't have to be the Brett way. It's just Do some sort of Sunday setup, and your week, your stress, your control that you have over your week will be so much better.
It's like the famous saying, don't show me your goals, show me your calendar.
Totally.
And
Totally.
then I should be able to tell you what the goals are.
Absolutely. And if you put something on that list, and then the last part I should have mentioned is like, you go to schedule it then. So like in my calendar, I have these little, like, that's 15 minutes, that's 30 minutes, that's this. And if you get to the point where you're like, well, Brett, it all doesn't fit. Exactly. Now we need to prioritize. Now we need to make sure, like, hey, what if we can't fit it, that means it's either not really important or maybe not important for you. Can we delegate it? Can we push it off? Does it need to be next week? Or does something else need to get bumped so that we can fit it?
It's, it reminds me of like a time when I was just starting out. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that are probably listening to this that are either starting out or in, growth phase or post-exit even, when your calendar is a lot more empty than you would think.
Yeah.
When you have a lot going on, you have a very busy life. Basically, at this point, you have some form of a calendar because you just would implode. There's nothing you can do. You have to. Like your wife's gonna yell at you, or your team's gonna hate you, or someone's gonna hate you if you don't have a calendar. But when it's really just like me, myself, and I in a sense, and your biggest responsibility is literally what goes on between your ears. And you stare at a calendar and it's like, all right, I have all this time. And you can maybe put a workout in there and maybe some work. How would you suggest that with someone that has less responsibility, less going on, but a big goal, whether it's building a business or accomplishing a big task, whether it's physical or whatever, how would you recommend that they approach that Sunday? Because, they could probably survive without scheduling that day.
Great question. So business is a huge bucket of our lives. But if I were to ask anybody, what are the most important buckets of their life? Most people without fail tell me relationships and tell me health. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, you look at their calendar and they have work only, right? So that's one of those things where it's okay if you're willing to admit, and this is where, like, I don't like to, be like, float a bunch of fluffy BS out there. And it's like, oh, that sounds perfect, Brett, but like, this is real world. I get it. I get that your relationships may need to take a back seat when you are in the grind mode of a startup or in a business. You may not be at every birthday party for a while. You may not be at every happy hour for a while. That doesn't mean that they're not necessarily important, but what does that look like? Sometimes for me, that means, can I take a quick 25-minute phone call while I'm walking my dog Ruby in the morning, because it's like a quick check-in with a friend, but like, I'm not going to be able to go to the bachelor. Like, I don't want to go to the bachelor party, right? like how can I be there and still be a good friend and focus on those things that are important to me, and at the same time, still be able to carve out. And that's where a lot of people will talk about balance. And I don't believe that there are phases of our life that are just perfectly balanced. If you are one of those people, great, teach me, because I would love to know. Yeah. But I feel like it's choice about where we're going to be imbalanced. And there were times of my life where I avoided intimate relationships because I felt like I am going to be so imbalanced in that relationship that it's not fair to that person, because I am locked in. Like, I want my Friday nights to be at the library, writing and coaching. I want this to be like, it was work first. And then you get to a place where, and I'm lucky, and maybe this is athlete, maybe this is, family history, but like, I've never had a phase where health wasn't one of those important things. And to me, I hang my hat on that, because yes, there's times when you're in better shape than less shape, or more fit than less fit. But to me, I've always been able to associate working out with energy, and nothing I've ever done do I say like, this would be easier if I had worse energy. This would be so much better if I had shitty energy. Like, this project would be so much better if my energy sucked. No, it's always, I need as much energy as possible. And I really want my head to be in a good place. So I've kind of always associated fitness with mindset, and nutrition with like energy. And have I eaten pizza? Of course. Do I eat those? Like, of course I do. Yeah. But I know that, like, hey, that's a change. That's an exchange. Like, right? You want good energy, eat good food. You want a good, healthy mind and good mental health and feel good about yourself and good energy, go work out. Just put those two things on your calendar and good things will happen. Wow.
You describe in the book, I loved it, the fuck it button.
Yes.
As a source of self-sabotage. Talk to me a little bit about that. What is describe for people, what is the fuck it button? And how do you how do you see it, people using it
Yeah, the fuck it button. This big red button. It's like, you know, when Target used to have like that button, it was like, oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the opposite of that button, and it's like huge and it's there. And it's when we start to stumble, things get hard. We're hitting challenges. We're, you know, getting punched in the face over and over and over. And everybody has that button, and it's just a battle of when we're going to hit it. And that fucking button is, you know what? I give up. I tap out. And for some people, it is on, hey, I'm going to do this thing for 30 days. And like, they're perfect, slip up a little bit, miss a day, fuck it button. For some people, it is way down the road. But that fuck it button is us saying, you know what? I'm tapping out. I'm throwing in the white towel. And knowing where that button is for people is what prevents this cycle of starting and stopping and having to constantly like work back from the bottom. And like, sometimes you get halfway up the mountain, just set up camp. Just don't tumble your way all the way back to the starting line. Like, that fuck it button is basically like, that's it, I'm going all the way back to the bottom. And it's like, hold on a second. Don't do that. Just pause for a second. Shift to first gear, move slower. So that fuck it button is really like the biggest self-sabotage for people. And I talk about where that button starts to creep in a lot for people, because a lot of this uncomfortable either way isn't just, and I also want to paint the picture for anybody who sees the title. Like, I am not in any way trying to tell somebody that their whole life should be uncomfortable. Like 24/7, 365 uncomfortable. That is not what I'm saying. But I am telling people that we have these choices all the time that show up. And so many people convince themselves, well, if I stay comfortable here or I choose this route, I'm going to avoid uncomfortable. And the whole point of the book from start to finish is getting you to buy in on the fact that that is absolutely crap. You will never avoid the uncomfortable things in your life. It is just you're choosing. Do you have control over them and choosing the path where you actually have some say? Or are you letting complacency and letting, you know, just the world kind of float you around and choose for you? Because the world's going to give you uncomfortable. You can either deliberately seek out discomfort and have control over your life, or you can have the uncomfortable that comes of delaying things, letting life pass you by, following the crowd at all times, and then looking back with a hell of a lot of regrets. So I'm trying to get the reader to understand, embrace more risk in your life to avoid more regret down the road.
Yes. I forget who told me this, and I was at a young age, and he mentioned that all I have to do is never resist the urge to take maximum risk, but always be cautious of catastrophe. And he's like, but also remember that you are way further away from catastrophe than you ever think you are. And most of the time, when you are just about to experience a catastrophic situation, you probably didn't even realize.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind, because he's like, you know how many times you've been on a plane when something went terribly wrong and you didn't even know? And the pilot just like took care of it. And they were like, the two pilots like to each other, like, I was close.
Just put your seatbelt on.
That was weird, you know? And like, that's happened. Or, you know, you were driving and someone was texting and they were like about to swerve in, and the last second they woke up. Like, you don't even realize the catastrophic situations that you've avoided. But the ones you do think are around the corner are actually much further than you think.
Yeah.
And to live that way. But I love the actual, like, it's like a subheading of the book, which is why choosing easy is making your life hard. I think I texted you this the other day. It was one of my favorite lines from the book. And is that, you know, people are often not really avoiding, in the sense, the hard. They're just choosing easy now, hard later.
Yes.
And I felt like that one hit me, because that shows up, at least for me, in like every bucket, whether it's health or business or relationships. It's like, you avoid a hard conversation. Do you ever actually avoid a hard conversation?
Yeah.
It just compounds.
Yes.
And so, like, talk to me a little bit about that. Like, that big word in the middle of uncomfortable is comfort.
Yeah.
And the consequences of choosing it now, and how that plays out for people later on.
Yeah, we all love comfort. It's like, who doesn't love staying in your pajamas and the couch, like, in, you know,
in the hot tub too long though.
Exactly. You get burned. So it's not, again, it's not that, you know, I don't live this life of like, oh, Brett's never comfortable. Absolutely not. Like, of course I'm comfortable, but we have also, and I think it's only getting worse. Like, we haven't hit that time where it self-corrects yet, but like, comfort is everywhere. And between streaming services and I know I'm a little bit older than you, but like, we can think back to a time when the internet was like dial up, right? And
I
like cell
remember.
phone only text.
Who's on the
and
phone?
like exactly. Like things like that made it a little bit hard. There was automatic friction in there. But now, I mean, I even see it with nieces and nephews of you guys never talk you never talk to each other. It's only text. And you don't even have to get together because you can just jump on PlayStation and talk to each other that way. So there's these things that like comfort is causing us to delay it. I also think like a great example that everybody can relate to is like the credit card. Is like swipe now, pay later, right? I want this now, so I'm going to swipe. And where does debt come from? Debt comes from I'm not thinking about what I have to pay. I'm thinking about what I want. And that credit card example shows up in a lot of areas of our life. Like I don't want to exercise now. I want the burgers and fries right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to eat that and then I'll work that off later. But what happens is we end up digging ourselves this hole of this choosing easy now, and ends up making our life very, very hard later. There's no avoiding the hard conversation. You got to lean into it and you got to embrace it. And that is not just for somebody getting started. This may seem like, elementary for somebody who's getting started, and I hope that they can benefit. But think of like the entrepreneur in the world of the more that you're like when you're cruising and things are going well, it's easy to be like, let's just let's soak this up and like enjoy this comfortable ride. But that's the companies that are like Blockbuster that all of a sudden things are great. We're fine. Come on, nobody's going to be watching streaming stuff online. And then all of a sudden they're out of business, completely out, like gone for a company that was doing really well, because what happened is you probably would have been hard to pivot. Probably would have been hard to make those changes. So that goes back to what we were talking about earlier of don't just learn when you're losing, learn when you're winning as well.
It's, one of my friends recently, actually, and a member of the club, was going through a kind of like a business lull. Business wasn't doing as well, kind of a soft spot, uncommon, like unexpected. And he called me and he was like, maybe I play off some people, and like just very down. Things weren't going so well. And I was like, dude, the last time we spoke was 3 or 4 months ago, and you were telling me how you had no time to spend on the business, and it was so crazy. You had so much going on. I'm like, you asked for this. Like, take advantage of it because you have another good time coming. And the same is true in the opposite. When things are going well and you have so much amazing things going on, don't get comfortable.
Yeah.
Because the opposite is coming your way as well. You have a bad time is coming.
Yeah.
And it's a very big thing that I think a lot of us don't realize because we live at the temperature of the day. Yes.
I think having a mantra for both. That's where
I love that.
That's
mantra
where
for both.
Knowing when you're cruising and things are going like super well is right. Like, the easiest one is like this too shall pass. We're living it, enjoy it, celebrate it. This is like when things are rolling, I often try to think about like, hey, like we're living the good old days, like right now. Like we're going to look back one time, and especially with my wife and I expecting a child, we're going to look back one day and remember it was just you and me and the dog, like all the things we could do and like how much we could just like, we're going here, you're going there, and we're going in different directions. Like these are the good old days. And I know that you and Chris, just on one of your recent episodes, were talking about, do you ever miss the really early days of like being almost naive and not, too naive to realize like what was ahead, but in the grind didn't even feel like the grind because you were in pursuit of something. It didn't care that you were sleeping on someone's couch, like those kind of things. Those were the good old days of like looking back on growing the business
days that we wanted to end so badly.
Couldn't wait.
Like I'll never forget 22 years old in a landlord's office trying to sign a lease. He's telling me to go open up an ice cream shop because juicing was not a thing. And he's like, why don't you just go be a 22-year-old? And in my head, I was like, I want to kill this guy for saying that. Shame on you. You know, I'm this big man. I'm a business owner. Treat me like one, But looking back, I say that to people now. We have some incredible young entrepreneurs in the club. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like, don't forget to be 21 sometimes, and like they take it the same way I took it. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, because you're gonna miss it.
You're gonna miss it.
You're gonna miss it, And like when I look back, I'm so grateful for everything I've ever done. But like, I wish I could go back and whisper into young Aaron's ear and be like, just go out this weekend. just this weekend, go and just be a stupid 20-year-old for a minute, and then come back to this whole adult life.
Yeah, see, I had no problem being a 22-year-old and a 25-year-old, like probably too much. Somebody could have whispered like, hey, give one weekend up and go do something with your life. So that was the combination. But also, let me give you a mantra for the bad days, because you wake up and the world's falling and the business is like not where we want to be. There's like this new saying that I've been waking up and telling Ann when I wake up in the morning is like, I'm in my prime. And I'm just like, I'm in my prime. And it started because I woke up one day and started, looked in the mirror and was like, this is as young as I'm ever going to be. And like, that's a weird thought, right? Is like, this is the youngest I'm ever going to be. Now I know health. I fully believe that I could be healthier like down the road, but like, this is as young as I'm going to be, but it's also the wisest that I've ever been. Wow. I have never been wiser than I am right now today, 38 years old, with everything that I know, that everything I've experienced, all the adversity I've overcome, like that, like I am the wisest and I am the youngest. Dude, you're in your prime. Wow. And if you could convince yourself you're in your prime, no matter what age you are listening to this, dude, take advantage. Take advantage of being in your prime, because it's just like, it's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful ride. Whether you're struggling, whether you're cruising, whether life is good, whether you're piecing it together, you're in your prime. Enjoy it right now, because one day you're going to look back and you're going to look at that struggle. And I mean, the struggle is, if you're struggling, just sometimes I like to think about like, man, this is part of the documentary. Like
chapter in the book.
It's a chapter in the book.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't have to be the title. When you're struggling, don't confuse a chapter in your book with the title of the book. The title of the book doesn't have to be this low point that you're in, or this huge setback, or this massive change that you're in. Hey, it might just be a chapter, but don't give the pen to anybody else. Write the next chapter, get yourself out of it. That's going to make a sick documentary one day.
Oh, that's fucking money, Ned. That's money. I love, I want to double click into comfort, right? Because comfort is like a really big portion of the book, but also I think it's like people wear their level of comfort on their shoulders, right? Mm-hmm. When they come out into the world and they participate, whether it's in social events or business or whatever it is, you can see like how comfortable even someone is in their own skin.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in the book the idea of comfort sends you the signal that nothing needs to change. And I want to first get into like what you mean by that, but I'll caveat in saying this because this is the Founders of Founders podcast. There's obviously a lot of founders who are listening to this. Some founders actually, thrive in chaos, right? It's almost like it's like so much discomfort, and it's beyond even uncomfortable. It's just chaos.
Yeah.
So speak to the level of comfort where you kind of don't want to be in, but also the level of discomfort that you might not want to be in.
Yeah, great question. The comfort part is, comfort can be a good thing, right? Comfort can be a reward. It can be this fun thing that we enjoy. Comfort could be the gelato when we're in Italy. Like it could be whatever it could be. But comfort is also a sign that nothing needs to change. So comfort convinces us that everything's cool. So when we are enjoying the comfort or choosing comfortable all the time, it's this sign that like, hey, that probably means that we don't need to grow in that area. We might not need to change in that area. We might not need anything different in that area. So comfort can sometimes lie to us by saying, hold on a second, like you're going out with the boys. It's Saturday. We're doing this thing. It's like that this is cool. We're exactly where we want to be. Doesn't mean don't enjoy those things, but it can get tricky when comfort becomes the norm. When comfort becomes the norm, your norm is now saying, we're cool staying here. Mm-hmm. Discomfort, on the other hand, and I had a coach one time who called me out and after working together for a little while, he goes, Brett, I'm starting to realize something about you. And I said, what? And he goes, you don't want it if it's not hard.
Wow.
And I said, interesting. And he goes, yeah, you think the more that you suffer and the harder it is, that's the only way it's going to be a reward to you. And at I believe it was the Founders Club event that we did together, I remember my wife asking everybody, like, would you rather, what would happen if she was like, if I gave everybody in here 10 million? And a lot of people were like, oh, that would change everything for me. It would be all this thing. It was all this thing. And I had known that she was going to ask that question because she had asked me previously that same question. And I said, nothing. I didn't earn it. It wouldn't change. Like I wouldn't feel any differently about myself. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing because what I started to realize is even the things that were coming easy to me in life, I was disregarding them, pushing them off, and be like, it's got to be harder. How do I make this thing that's easy hard right now? That's when all of a sudden too much discomfort can be a bad thing, because you might actually be self-sabotaging yourself through just making it hard when like, hey, money's flowing to you, dude, don't make it harder, right? Or like this person loves you and you're pushing them away. Like, don't make that harder. So sometimes you could get yourself into that situation too. Yes. And I found that same thing. I found that both with money, realizing that any money that came easy to me, I like disregarded, and it didn't mean anything. It didn't make me feel any good.
It loosely. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. It wasn't like, Brett, you're smart because you figured out a way to make money easily. It was, you haven't earned this, right? Wow. That money, like, that's gonna disappear because it's too easy. It's
associating like, effort to outcome.
Effort to outcome. Wow. So it's important to understand, and this is where like some life inventory and like, again, having a different perspective, like we're connecting all the dots here. Having that coach call me out on that was really uncomfortable, but it was better than living the whole rest of my life without this awareness of, am I making this harder than it needs to be? Because maybe this part should just be easy, and over here I can push myself and get uncomfortable. Like maybe there's some parts of our life that actually can be easy, or it can be simple. Like maybe marriage doesn't have to be this, like, marriage is hard. I used to hate when people say that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, why does it have to be hard? It doesn't mean it's not going to take work.
Right.
But what I love, again, about when you find the right person, it's like, no, it's easier than it is hard. It's still challenging and it still takes work, but I'm not going to live my life waking up every day being like, marriage is hard. Because guess what I'm looking for now?
Yeah.
How is it hard today?
Wow. This is my favorite question to ask any coach and anyone that works with high performance individuals. And I will quickly say before I ask this that Brett is going to be at the Founders Forum.
Let's go.
This is going to air right before Founders Forum. No. Well, if you're listening to this, he was just on at Founders Forum.
Yeah.
It was
and
incredible.
If you're at the Founders Forum, come give us a listen.
Yes. So I'm so excited for that, because I remember the last time you spoke at our last Founders Club event at the house, and it was just unbelievable, and the feedback was amazing. So I know people are going to love it. But the reason I bring this up is because as a coach, you're spending so much time focusing on other people and finding out their weak points and what they're strong at, and optimizing their life and all their buckets. And it's a beautiful job, because it's so self-rewarding to see someone, take your findings and your work and then just run with it and become so special. But I always find it interesting when I ask a coach, what is something that you struggle to keep yourself accountable with? Because I always find you get in this mode of looking at everyone else, and it's like, what is something that, you see in yourself that you want to work on, that, you work on a regular basis?
Totally. And that's a great question, because everybody has that reflection. I think my favorite part of doing what I do is that it keeps me in the game. And if I ever stop looking to grow, or stop looking to work on myself, or stop working with my own coaches, like I'm retired. Hang me up, put me out. I'm done. Right? It's like, I don't want to be in that game anymore. But what I love about it is I always want to be the coach that I'm like, hey, don't come to me because I have it all figured out. Come to me because I'm in the game with you. Come to me because we're going to keep searching on stuff together. Like every conference that I go to, I'm going to filter through what is the best thing for you. That's what I love about speaking, and that's what I love about the constant learning. But the two things, one of them sitting on the table right here. This book would not have happened if I didn't get external accountability to make it happen. And the reason why this book happened was I was sitting around with a group of friends once, and somebody asked the question, if you only had, it's a deep question, right? This is like fireside, late night. Like if you knew you had 1 year left to live, what would be your regrets? And rather than brushing it off, being like, no regrets, the YOLO, like all that, I sat with it. I gave it the time that it deserved. And I remember actually being very proud of the way that I have lived personally. And personally, I remember, thinking, I feel like I've treated people really well. I try to live by the motto, like, people will never forget how you made them feel. Yeah. I feel like I've spent time with my family. I have been there for my friends. Like I'm a guy who shows up. Like I was really proud of all that. And then I remember thinking professionally, and still, like, of course, there are goals that I would still have. Of course, there are things that I haven't done yet, stages I haven't spoken on, things that I haven't accomplished. But the one thing that was like really glaring was it came out real quick. I was like, I haven't written a book. I was like, I know that there's a book inside of me, and I haven't written a book. Like that would be the one thing that if like a year from now, or even right now, is like I'm really upset that like I know that there is one in there, and it's on my heart, and like I just haven't written it together. Couple weeks later, I'm on the phone with publishers, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, now I'm logged in. Give me the pay. I'm making the payment. I'm making the thing. We got the timeline. And all of a sudden it was like, that would have never happened because there was a document on my computer from 2018 titled Brett's Future Book. And what's weird about that is I opened that document on my birthday, which is March 14th, 2018. I must have been reflecting on some life inventory about like, what am I doing here with my life? You know, maybe that's the time to make some change. But 2018 to 2023, nothing. The document was filled with a whole bunch of stuff, but like the book wasn't any closer to being a book. It was just a document full of all my thoughts, stories, you know, chapters, things like that.
It's like a manifestation.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden I was like, this is not going to happen solo, Brett. Like you need a team, you need people around you, you need to be held accountable. So that's the only reason, like 2 years later, we're looking at this book here. The other one was around money. And realizing that not only did I need to do some work around my money mindset, like what is the relationship that I have to money and what does money mean to me? A la what we were talking about of like, don't make it harder than it needs to be, but like also how do I feel proud when I earn it? And how can I continue like growing something that feels really good? And starting to like really spend it. Like I would watch personal growth videos all day long, but then all of a sudden I was like, I need to drip in some money videos. I need to drip in some money mindset videos. Tell me about taxes. What do I need to know about taxes? Tell me about investing. What do I need to know about investing? And all of a sudden starting to learn there was something where I needed a financial advisor. I needed an accountant. I needed all those people and I needed somebody to help me kind of, you know, coach me through that and get and talk to them not just once a year, but talk to them more consistently the same way you would talk to a coach, because all of a sudden I'm getting familiar with what the hell does what is a SEP IRA? What the hell does that mean? Oh, tell me about that. Okay. What is this? Like I'm starting to learn some of this stuff. And now all of a sudden that was an area where I had zero confidence. And now all of a sudden, like if people are talking about money, I'm like, oh, let me get in. Where it used to be like, please don't ask me, please don't ask me, please don't ask me. Like I don't have anything to add here. And I'm just sweating through my pants because like I have no idea what to say because, you know, I'm 38. I had probably, I don't think I had a single dollar invested at age 30, zero. Wow. So when somebody would talk about like, oh, like what stocks do you like? I'd be like, did you hear about the Yankees? Like, you know what I mean? Like, can I possibly change this so quickly? So those are two areas for me that I found that, again, you know, just not comfortable doing my own and I needed extra help.
You know, I just want to double click on this money thing because there's always this one person that comes into your life at some point. And I call them money messengers. And the reason why I call them that is because sometimes you miss them and then they come back and they come in a new form, a different person, a news article. There's always something that finally hits you in the head and says, are you ready to listen? And for me, I was 17 years old and it was my friend's sister's boyfriend who worked for the CRA, which is like the IRS of Canada. And he sat there and I was so obsessed. I was like, who are you ticking down this week? You know, like who are you going after? Tax evasion? Like, what do you do with money? And he looked at me and he's like, you have a lot of questions about money. Like, do you actually, like, what are you trying to learn? I'm like, I don't know. Like, how do I invest? Like, what do I invest? How do I buy the stock? Like, I can't find the stock when I look for it. He's like, it's a ticker symbol. I'm like, what the hell is that? And he sat with me and he explained to me the S&P, and he made me read a book called something about renting being rich. I forget what it's called. It's a very short book. And he was like my guy. I texted him and he'd answer for like 6 months. And then I became obsessed. And if it wasn't for that, I never would have got into all the vehicles and all this stuff and understanding the eighth wonder of the world, the compounding, like what. And I think like I see that person happen for people in so many ways. And it's like, what could we be doing as individuals? It's like, okay, you're a business owner. I don't even want to get into how many business owners don't know shit about their money and their business. And somehow it grows. I don't know, but, or doesn't grow. And they wake up one day and they go, wait a second, what happened to all the cash? I thought we did $1 million last month. You know, it's like, what could we tell, or what would you share really with entrepreneurs listening to this, or really just anyone, any high performance individual listening to this? Because everyone has a relationship with money. That relationship might be, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it because, you know, as a kid, we didn't have it and it sucks. I don't want to feel that feeling. So leave me alone. Or it can be like, I work so hard for it. I want to hold on to it for the rest of my life. Or it's like, I don't know how I'm ever going to make anything of this.
So there are actually 5 money relationships, the same way there's 5 love languages. And I wish I was prepared. I would tell you exactly what they are. We had somebody come to our last retreat and tell me about them. But one of them is like security, safety. The other one is power, gives you the power. One of them is like opportunities or whatever. But there's 5 of them, and maybe we could put them in there. But learning about those is really helpful because it lets you know what is my relationship with money, and do I like that that's my relationship with money? Because a lot of people will be like, yeah, that's definitely me. But then ask yourself, like, do you want to, like, you have a ton of money, and it's no different why we both know people who make a ton of money and still will never pick up a check for anybody. And it's like, well, you're just so tight with money because you're never going to have enough. It's good to know about that because like you think you need 5 million to be like the happiest person in the world. And like, if you're going to get to 5, you're going to be like, I need 10. And when you get to 10, you're going to be like, I need 20. And there was a study that just came out where most people, when you ask them like, what number would make you feel comfortable with money? Whatever you have right now, it's double.
Wow.
So if you have 5 million, you're selling it's 10 million. If you have 200 grand in your bank account, you would be like, if I just had 4, man, if I just had 400, like that, I'd be set.
Yeah.
It's funny that psychology, we all just want to double it. We all feel like we're halfway there.
Yeah.
So one, learning about which love language you have with money.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that was really powerful for me was realizing this statement that the thing that holds most of us back is not our ability to learn more. It's our ability to unlearn things that we were taught by people who don't have the life that we want. And for me, I had to unlearn some money stuff. And it was uncomfortable because you go through this and, my dad passed away when we were 16 and I saw my mom have to work 2 jobs and worry about putting 2 kids through school. And for me, money was like a stress thing. We never have enough, save it, hold it, don't do anything, we did fun stuff, but like for the most part, like we were lower middle class. I say that we weren't a poor family, we were an or family. You could do this or that, right? It's like you do one or the other. So, but then I started to realize like I'm following the exact money blueprint that I saw growing up.
Yeah.
But then if you would have asked me, do you want to live exactly the same way my answer would have been no. So hold on a second. I need to unlearn the blueprint that I'm currently following because it is not going to give me the life that I want. And that was a huge moment. And it's a big moment for people. And I remember dropping that into a speech one time, like casually, just like, yeah, you got to unlearn some stuff. And everybody came up to me afterwards and they're like, I have that from my mom. I have that from my dad. I have that. And like everybody was like, I relate to this unlearning thing. Now, I'm not saying call your parents up and yell at them for like what they taught you with money, because I have a ton of respect and I can appreciate what I saw growing up with money. But I started to realize like the stock market is not gambling, right? Like, I have to change my mindset about that. It's not, you have to sometimes spend money to make money. It is not just about saving. Don't put it like debit card, credit, like all of those things I had to unlearn. And to me, that was the biggest thing that I had to face with money mindset, because I'm like, hey, I know that right now money is this thing that I kind of has control over me. And I don't want to live that way. And I also don't want to bring kids into the world that have like money is control. I want them to see money as a tool. It can give us opportunities. It can make life, more exciting. But at the same time, you have to understand it. And it's a tool and it's a skill that we have to learn.
It's definitely a skill we have to learn. I remember like me, like I wouldn't have access to like the bank accounts of the business or myself. I didn't want to look at it.
Yep.
And it all changed when the guy that actually acquired our company, he had like a party trick, whether he realized it or not, but he would know every single number in this entire $1 billion organization. Wow. And his personal life, the homes, the bills, the kids, off the top of his head to the day. Like you can go on like the store locator on their website, choose like a location, he would tell you the revenue. It was like he had AI in his head.
That's crazy.
And I was like, well, how do you do it? And he's like, well, I don't go to bed. I don't go to bed unless I look at it all. And like, I'm sure there's some anxiety level there. There's a story there for sure. But what I admired was how he faced it every day. He faced it every day and he built a connection to it. And one of the biggest things that really just changed in my life was just like facing it, looking at it for what it is. And if I need to sit with it because it doesn't feel good, I'll sit with it. If I need to like recalibrate, then I'll recalibrate. If I need to run a charge back because I don't know what to recognize the charge, and you can do that too, but you feel confidence in the way you are reacting and acting with your money, the relationship with your money.
Uncomfortable either way. It's
Uncomfortable
uncomfortable.
either way.
It was so uncomfortable for me to sit in a room full of people talking about money. And because like also you weren't supposed to do that. And then all of a sudden I'm realizing entrepreneurs do talk about money, and it's like a great way to learn about money. And then you get to share like best practices. Like, I don't know why that's not taught more, but find some people that are willing to talk about money, get in the room with them. It is fascinating, and you will learn more from sitting around 5 friends, good things, bad things, share things. Like, let me asterisk that. Make sure there are people who like are good with money.
Highly vetted group of entrepreneurs, the Founders Club.
Yeah, if there was only a group of people that could do this, where would we find that? But yeah, getting around people who are where you want to be, or are in pursuit at least of where you want to be, is so powerful.
So speaking of that, actually, we just had a recent event actually in Miami, and someone that was there has a very amazing community actually, and he was essentially explaining how he's got a big tax bill coming up this year because he did so well. And some people would say, you should be happy to pay tax, right? But you sit around a group of entrepreneurs that go, okay, let's figure out how we can organize this for you. And one person just basically said, hey, like just tell your accountant to switch from cash accounting to accrual accounting. Long story short, for people that understand that, is if you sell a product that takes 12 months to fulfill and that product is $1,200, then instead of capturing the full $1,200, you basically tell the accountant, allocate $100 a month for the next 12 months. So someone buys on December 1st, you don't have to pay tax on the full $1,200, you just allocate the $100. That ended up saving him $65,000. Something that he did not know that someone else was just able to tell him, because he was able to say, guys, I'm scared about my tax bill. I don't know what to do. That level of being uncomfortable saved him the idea of being uncomfortable later when he had to spend $65,000. That's not going to be good either way. You're not going to feel good about that. So I really love that example. Put yourself in those rooms and give yourself the opportunity to be vulnerable, uncomfortable, synonymous with each other, because it allows you to open up and not have to deal with the hard later.
That's the pathway to confidence. And confidence is a huge thing with founders and business people. Everybody's looking for more confidence. There's nobody I've ever met. And I hate the question of like, who here is confident? Who here is not? Well, guess what? The confident people are exactly. And it depends on the thing that you're associating your confidence to. If I was like, are you confident in strapping up the skates and going to play hockey? You'd be like, yeah. If I said teach a Zumba class to all the founders, you probably would say no.
Give me the shoes.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, confidence is this thing that if we can all of a sudden lean into, and I think people confuse confidence for belief. And I think they're kind of different. Yes, 100% believe in yourself that you're going to win. But the confidence to go do something, especially if it's scary or uncomfortable, is what will happen if I hit a challenge? What will happen if I fall? What will happen if this doesn't work? Yes. And the people who are confident to keep trying things, and it seems like some people just never even like ask the dumb question, which is another line. Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to. like ask the right question, get better answers. But confidence, that person to be able to raise their hand and say, hey, I need help with this, is actually the most confident thing that you can do, rather than sitting there and like, I'm going to fake it till I make it. I know exactly, money, I know all this. Once you start asking questions and you start saying, hey, I am actually struggling with this, confidence goes through the roof, because actually that's your most authentic self. Your most authentic self is the one who needs help.
I literally just had that happen a week ago, actually, with paddle, because I play so much paddle. And, I thought I had a good coach and I had all these things. I can't win. And like, I don't know. And I just can't win. I've spent so much money on this sport. I'm just training. And then I literally asked the guy that beat me in the finals last week. I said, what can I have done? What could I have done better? And because that was such a shame. Like I felt every cell in my body was like, just say good game and move on. But he played so well. I just said, hey man, this is really weird. But like, what could I have done better? And he went to me and he said, you don't hit basically this Vibora, this very specific shot. He's like, you don't hit that shot so confidently. So I know to give it to you. He's like, if you had a more confident Vibora, I would play a little bit more back. And I think like my coach, 6 months with him, we've never even like pointed that out. My coach isn't there watching me. And I ended up with I found a coach who specializes in training that shot. And I trained with them all week. And then I just won my first tournament because I have that shot. But it all came from that like super weird. I was like so shy about it. I'm like, dude, really weird. But like, how could I have beat you there? I was expecting him to be like, oh man, you can't. I'm so good. But he's like, dude, just that one shot. You don't have it.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I didn't take it in a bad way. I felt like, you know what? Fuck, maybe he's right. And it was just like, it's such a honest take, that self-reflection, that inventory on like something as a paddle game or your life or your relationships or your business. But, you know, one thing we always ask if you listen to the pods, which you do, at the end is my favorite question. And it's a question that can go so many different ways. And I want you to just kind of take a breath into it and say, you know, what kind of comes in. But the question is, you know, if we were able to bring the younger version of Brett, we were able to just sit him right here at the end of the table. And you can flash back to any age. The only ask is that you start with, I'm flashing back to age X, Brett. And you were able now to share one message with the younger version of yourself. What would that message be?
I have to go back to 16-year-old Brett. And 16-year-old Brett is battling a like severe back injury, taken out of all sports. And he also lost his dad all within like 2 months suddenly. And he thinks the world is falling. He thinks like life got hard real quick. He also been forced to grow up real quick. And I would just go back to 16-year-old Brett and tell him it's going to be okay. And it is simple as that, because you can convince yourself that it's never going to get better. You could convince yourself that like that life is always going to be hard, and that it's never going to get better, and that the world is happening to you. And while I don't love the line, like everything happens for a reason, I think that we give it purpose. I think we can, and I'm a big believer in recycling pain. And if you can understand that your adversity now will be your advantage later, and you can take your pain, and while you can't get rid of it, you can recycle it in the service of others, amazing things are going to happen to you, dude. Amazing things.
Wow. That's fucking money. Brett, I have to share with you that I think you're an incredible person. You're a great friend, and you hold space for so many people. It's, I don't have the word to describe it, but I think you should know that. I think you do know that, but I think you should hear it. So thank you for coming. And I know I just got the book, and the second I started reading it, I'm like, Brett, you got to come on the pod, man. We got to talk about it. So thank you for dropping whatever it is you had to do, because I know it's in the middle of the day, and coming to spend the time on the pod. Thank you for coming to the forum, both you and Ann, both there. I think it's going to be, have you guys ever done the same event together?
Only one other time, and it was awesome. So we're both very excited.
Yes.
And also we don't get to see each other speak that often, because she's in one place, I'm in another place. So like we're really excited.
You both are incredible, and you both believed in our mission really early on. And that it's always those OG people that we never forget about where we go. So thank you. And I'm assuming people can go and buy the book everywhere.
Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Yeah. Again, there's an audio book. I know a lot of people listen.
You did the audio.
I did the
so
audio
if you
book.
like his voice and you want to listen to it for longer.
And if you hate my voice, put it on 1.5 and just get through it.
Yes. So go buy the book.
I'd appreciate that.
I don't ever really chill on this ever, but legit go buy the book. It's the one thing I always tell people to do, because it's like not expensive to buy a book. You can buy it in all the different versions, but it's the best way to support anyone, but specifically an entrepreneur who deserves it. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you, dude.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you so much. And I just want to acknowledge you and the space you're creating for a lot of people, and a lot of people who would have felt alone. You're giving them a space to not feel so abnormal, and they're starting to build community and friendship, and that's so needed, man. So keep doing what you're doing, man. You're doing a great thing.
Thank you. All right, it's a wrap.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Founder to Founder podcast. And I have one favor, just one favor to ask. It's the only favor I'll ever ask from you. And if you liked what you listened to please like, subscribe, and please just leave a comment. Let us know what you think, how we can make it better. We are all in on delivering value to you, and all we ask in return is that you hit that subscribe. It goes a long way for what we're trying to build here. And as always, we post an episode every single Wednesday, so stay tuned, and thank you for tuning in.